I'm Ashton from Event Chain for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Robbie Heeger, the CEO of Endaoment. Robbie, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time to be here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ashton. What an honor.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into Endaoment. You're doing something special in the crypto space right now, and it's really appreciated. And I'm really excited to dive into the details. And I would love for you to just kick it off for us with a high-level overview and the focus of Endaoment.
Well, thank you for those kind words. That's really warms my heart to hear you say that. We are a tax-exempt community foundation offering donor-advised funds and community funds. Endaoment is really the first completely on-chain philanthropic institution to exist in the United States. And we launched in October with our donor advised fund product, and just recently launched our first few community funds as well, which is a new kind of pooled giving to complement our very individually focused donor advised fund program. And would love to dive in on the details, but that's really the overview. We're a tax exempt community foundation built on the Ethereum blockchain.
Definitely. And I think in this time of need, the philanthropy from the crypto space it's been around for a while, but it's going to continue to grow, and people are giving back. The people that got in early and involved into driving these innovations into the real world, they've had a lot of value accrued to them. And I think this is one of the perfect ways for them to give back. And I'm curious, what was your original goal, or your insights into when you started Endaoment? What were you trying to achieve?
Oh man, take me back to 2019. I started working on Endaoment. Just myself, I was a self-taught engineer. I just taught myself how to code. And I have been investing in around the crypto space since 2013, but didn't really have the technical skill set till much later, and knew that I wanted to go full-time into crypto. And I was looking for a project to try and test my new skills out, my new coding skills out. And I knew that I wanted to do something that was focused around giving back, around work of impact. And I had a donor advised fund that I was used to giving stock to. I would give stocks that I had in my portfolio to this donor advised fund. And I started going deeper into the crypto rabbit hole, and as that happened, I started to own less stocks, and I started to hold more crypto in my portfolio. And so I had less stocks to give away to charity into my existing donor advised fund. And I was like, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, right? Like, my portfolio mix is shifting, but I still want to be able to give. And so the sort of core question that got Endaoment rolling was, well, can we make a cryptocurrency donor advised fund? Can we make a donor advised fund that does the exact same thing as my stock donor advised fund does, the one that accepts stock, but have it run through smart contracts in a decentralized manner, using as much of DeFi software and services as possible to build this sort of crypto native version of what exists already in the traditional finance world.
That's really great, and I'm glad that you're utilizing the technology, and it's truly the entrepreneurial journey there, where you're like, hey, now I have crypto and I need to give it back, right? And let's build the solution, especially since you just learned to engineer and code it yourself. So that's amazing, Robbie.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a certain kind of crazy in order to, try and start a business off your first coding project. And so, I think you're totally right to say that there's a long entrepreneurial journey there. And, the last 2 years have been filled with the ups and downs, but it really is just so gratifying to see something that you started working on with your own hands, and to see other people come in and start working on it. And now to see, us pass, first $1 million, and now we're past $2 million in total value locked for philanthropy, like, this is beyond my wildest dreams, right? Like, we're so far beyond like what, as a, entry level coder, I sort of set out to try and build. And now there's more people in the mix, and there's, much more talented engineers than myself in the mix. But yeah, it really has been one of those classic entrepreneurship, just get out there and try something kind of vibe. And it's been a lot of fun and also really challenging.
Definitely, and I have a feeling like it's just beginning, and those numbers are going to become astronomical, and because you really do have something special, Robbie. And I was looking into it, and there's multiple parts to endowment. There's the part for organizations, and there's the individuals. And I wanted to sort of drill down onto that individual side. If you could talk about, as an individual investor, as somebody who is in crypto for a while, how do they get started? What do they do to contribute, and what are the benefits that they reap and the rewards?
Yeah, I feel like donor advised funds, which is what we have at Endaoment. Endaoment offers donor advised funds to individuals, and creating a fund on Endaoment is creating a donor advised fund. And I feel like donor advised funds are maybe the best kept secret in modern portfolio management theory and sort of modern philanthropy as well. Donor advised funds are relatively new, but they've still been around for more than a decade. They've been around for a while. What they are is basically this is a loose term. This is not really the technical understanding of what a donor advised fund is, but a helpful metaphor to think about a donor advised fund is as like a charitable checking account. So what you do is step one is you open a fund. You come to Endaoment, you create a fund. Step two is you give some crypto. So you actually send us your crypto to our wallet. And we take that crypto and we sell it right away on Uniswap for USDC. And we take all the USDC minus a small fee that Endaoment takes on the top and put that at your donor advised fund. And then what you as the donor get to do is do a process called making a grant recommendation. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing. But basically, a grant recommendation is an instruction to Endaoment, to us, to give some of the cash in your donor advised fund to an organization. Because technically, when you give us your donation, it becomes the irrevocable property of Endaoment. It becomes Endaoment's, right? When you give us that crypto in step two, right, it becomes Endaoment's, and now you have what are called donor advisor privileges. So you get to advise your donor advised fund on Endaoment about where the money goes to. And we let you choose from over 1.5 million different nonprofits in the country. So there's almost basically every nonprofit in the country now has the infrastructure to accept a gift that started off as crypto. And through this system of opening a fund, giving some crypto and having it getting liquidated by Endaoment, and then making grant recommendations, you can start off with crypto, make a gift and get a tax deductible donation right away, and then choose over time where you want your funds to be distributed to out of your donor advised fund. And this is like just the most convenient way to give. It lets you do your tax planning and your giving in one step, and your grant recommendations and the distribution of the assets that were generated from your gift in another step. And the other reason why this is beneficial to a user or to a donor, if you are an individual who has significant capital gains on an asset that you got in on at the ICO, let's say, we've all done our fair share of ICOs for better or worse, and sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't, but often you start off at a very low price, and then the price goes way up, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's happened here? I want to try and take some of this gain and give it away. This allows you, a donor advised fund, the kinds of funds that you can create at Endaoment, give you the ability to give your crypto in its original form. And that means you don't have to sell it first, right? If you wanted, let's say you did an ICO moons, you want to take some money off the table and you want to give some money away. Well, if you want to give some money away and that organization doesn't accept your ICO coin, your only option is to sell it first for dollars and then give it to the organization. But if you sell it first for dollars, you have to pay the tax on that sale. And if you give it to a donor advised fund, granted, as long as it's long-term capital gains, as long as it's an appreciated asset, you've held it for more than a year, you can give your long-term capital gains assets to a donor advised fund and write off the full value of the gift without having to first pay the tax on the gain on that ICO coin. And this is like generally the moment for people who've never heard of a DAF before where their head starts to explode and they're like, wait a second, say that again, you know? And so I think this is why I think it's the best kept secret in sort of philanthropic giving. And it's also why it's the fastest growing philanthropic vehicle in the country. There are now I believe it's over 700,000, maybe over 800,000. I have to check the number, but there's nearly 1 million donor advised funds in the United States, but only 4% of people with a brokerage account have a donor advised fund. And I think this is something that we have a huge education gap on. And so I'm happy that you asked this question because it takes a minute to understand why you would want a donor advised fund. But once you do, it becomes the most convenient, easiest decision you'll ever make when it comes to philanthropy. And I think it's a really exciting way and a much more engaging way for a donor to give, both for their own financial planning, but also for the level of interaction that they can have with organizations.
Definitely. And that's a really great explanation, Robbie. Thank you for going into that detail. And yeah, that's a crucial step, that realizing that you can move those appreciated long-term capital gains into the DAF. So thank you for that explanation. And what I also like about that is that when you're moving it into the fund, you're utilizing the blockchain technology, which is sort of the reason probably that you got into crypto as well. And I wanted to know if you could touch a little bit just on the Ethereum and the blockchain part of Endaoment and how that's being used while they're making their donations.
Sure. So you touched on one of the biggest parts, which is that we use Uniswap and are working hard with the SushiSwap community to support SushiSwap as well. We use on-chain, decentralized order books, liquidity pools to liquidate gifts. And that's a no-brainer, right? And when we look at the way that we're building Endaoment, what we want is a community foundation that's built from the ground up using as many decentralized services and softwares as possible, with the goal of always layering on more to constantly push the amount of decentralization we can provide without compromising on the regulatory compliance, without jeopardizing our tax status, right? So we're constantly trying to find the balance of how do we integrate as much decentralization as possible without jeopardizing the tax exemption that we've received from the United States government. And the way that we do that right now, the way that we've integrated with the chain right now is to use the chain as our grant making and donation settlement layer built together all in one. So if you look at an organization like Fidelity Charitable or like Schwab Charitable, or even local community foundations like the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, or here in San Francisco we have the San Francisco Community Foundation. And what they have is they have grant teams that work in one tool, that work in one sort of donor relationship management system. Then they have a portal for their donor advised fund. That's a different piece of software. And then they have a finance team that's using paper checks to pay out the grants that are coming from the donor advised fund portal and then imported into the donor relationship management tool and then exported to the finance team to print out a check, have the check signed, and mail the check to the organization. I think you can see where I'm going with this. We said, let's do all three teams' jobs using smart contracts, right? So what we have is two different kinds of smart contracts at Endaoment. We have a fund contract and we have an organization contract. And the fund contract serves as both the finance department and the grant making apparatus for the donor advised fund. And the organization contract serves as our escrow account for the organization, like a holding account, while we onboard the organization to get them their dollars once the grant's been approved. But also it serves as a Rolodex for the broader ETH community of addresses that are tied to EIN numbers, which are like tax identification numbers of nonprofits. So now we also have, this Rolodex of Ethereum addresses that map to nonprofits that will always pay out to that nonprofit, and that there's an organization on the hook to make sure that they get paid out. And so by combining the grant making and the financial services layers using our smart contracts, we've eliminated what is at traditional community foundations 3 separate operations. And over time, we're obviously looking to integrate more decentralization. We would love to see, our board of directors to be elected by a DAO. We would love to see the decisions that we make about our policies and procedures to be community governed. We would love to see, direct incentive programs for people to come and help onboard organizations into the Ethereum ecosystem. There are lots of cool ways that we can increase our integration, move more computation on chain. But for now, what we're doing is using our fund and org contracts as the base grant making and financial distribution layer for our community foundation. And that in and of itself is already a huge advancement when we compare it to the way that other community foundations are running around the country.
Wow, that's very exciting. And it's so great to see these smart contracts act as an intermediary in such an efficient manner that simple contracts can replace 3 different departments and consolidate that into one and automate it. And it always grinds my gears when I hear paper checks. You're doing all of this work, and then at the end there's a paper check, and you're like, "Oh, it's back to the checks," right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad. I'm glad that you guys have really nailed that part. And we don't have a lot of time, Robbie, but I want to talk about what are the next steps for Endaoment. You guys have already done a lot so far, and I'm curious what is in the wheelhouse for what's coming up next in the next few months and through the summer of 2021.
Wow, so much. We have so much in the pipeline that is so exciting. We're growing. We're bringing on more people. We're growing our team. We're growing our staff. We are launching more community funds. Stay tuned for both more community funds that are geared around crypto protocols, as well as more community funds that are geared around specific issue areas. So we see sort of 2 opportunities to engage the crypto community in 2 very different ways using the same fund apparatus. We just launched our first 2 community funds. You can find them on our website. We launched the Sushi Swap Community Fund, as well as the Stand With Asians Community Fund, both of which are receiving donations right now and are in the process of selecting additional grant recipients from those funds. We're really, really excited about the possibility of rolling out token-powered membership interest in our nonprofit organization. Our name is a sort of kitschy play on the DAO term, but it's not just smoke and mirrors. We will be launching our namesake at some point in the near future. I'm not at this stage ready to announce an exact timeline, but we will be looking to hand over this brand new community foundation to its community using the tools and and primitives that are being developed and created by crypto right now. And that means, passing over our governance to a DAO. And we're really, really excited about what that means for our community, what that means about the users who are using Endaoment right now, and what that means about how we can bring more new philanthropists into the endowment community, because really that's what we're looking to do here. We're looking to, do like effectively like proof of philanthropic effort, to borrow the term here, and to make sure that, we're really living up to our mission. Our mission is to manage and encourage the charitable giving of cryptocurrencies. And so we're going to keep building software and keep building apparatuses, keep building financial primitives that give people the possibility to do that in new and inventive ways with their cryptocurrency.
Very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that all play out, Robbie, especially the DAO part and giving those community funds to the community, and all the best with the current funds that you have open right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing the other ones open. I will leave the links to Endaoment and all the community links in the description box below as well for the viewers. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and talk about this today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing the updates.
Pleasure is all mine. Great conversation, and looking forward to seeing more of your show out there in the wild.